welcome to the Christ Church Fox Chapel podcast. The fastest growing conservative evangelical Anglican podcast in the entire Fox Chapel region. Today, our esteemed host is out. You'll have to forgive any technical difficulties. Alex is on study leave right now, though he is around the office and has been working on a book of sorts / a sermon series. He's been relieved of his podcast hosting duties for this week and next week, and so I'm excited to invite, actually this week I have a special guest with me, the soon-to-be renowned author and all-around great guy, the esteemed Reverend Alex Xander Shuttleworth. It's great to have you with us, Alex.
Hello, listeners. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days, since you're not doing the podcast as a host?
No.
You're doing the podcast as a guest.
It's weird. I think I'm sitting in the wrong chair. I should have been where you are.
Yeah, I know. We got this mixed up, but so...
What am I doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? What are any of us doing? What are any of us doing? But what are you doing?
Mostly just walking around, sticking to blacktop, pointing at holes and things like that.
Yeah.
Measuring stuff, mostly.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've been working on a little booklet for Advent. So this Christmas, this Advent, we've got a series. We're probably going to call it Christ Before Christmas. And the concept is that there are these 5 major scenes or acts, if you like, in the big story of the Old Testament, each of which really points towards Jesus. So when Jesus is on the road to Emmaus with the disciples and their hearts burn within them as he unfolds the scriptures and explains them to them, he isn't just saying, look, the Old Testament has all these prophecies about me and I've fulfilled them, like a checklist.
Yeah.
He's not just saying, look, I was born of a virgin, look, I was born in a stable, look, I died on a cross, look, I rose from the dead.
It's not just like a checklist.
Exactly. He's actually saying that the whole meta-narrative of the Old Testament, everything about God's big story, from creation all the way up to the cross, was actually pointing to him. And so if you look at Genesis, creation, and you look at the fall, there's already part of God's story there with Eve being promised that her offspring would crush the serpent's head. That's Jesus.
That's Genesis 3:28.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then you get into Exodus. You get into this covenant. Well, Jesus is the new covenant. You have the law and the promised land of the way they live in Israel, and that whole thing is fulfilled in him as the perfect sacrifice, establishing covenant and maintaining covenant with God.
It's extremely cool.
Yeah, it's really fun. And then we get to Kings and the division of the nation of Israel and Judah, and the ultimate king descendant is Jesus. And then we get exile and return from exile in Babylon. And again, he's the ultimate way home. So Advent series, we're looking at Christ Before Christmas in sort of 5 scenes from the Old Testament. And I'm writing a little book to go with it. The idea was it'd be about 5 pages on each, but it's absolutely way bigger than that. So cool. I decided to print it as a book. Yeah. And we can use that as a study guide. There are questions to ask each week. There's even recommended music to listen to that goes with each one.
Oh, really? That's
awesome.
And
it's just kind of fun to do that, do it that way.
I just think that's so cool because so many people often, and I think I was at one time in this camp, kind of see the Old Testament as a sort of a throwaway thing that you have. It sort of is there, and it gives you, there's some prophecies and stuff like that, but like it's not something you can actually, that you like by attending to it, you understand Jesus in his fullness. Like that you can't understand Jesus without the Old Testament.
Right. It's more than just the Bible Jesus read. That is a great book, The Bible Jesus Read. If you want to kind of to the Old Testament, that's a great one to start with. But it's much more than that. It's not just a matter of a kind of setup.
Yeah.
It is actually at a conceptual level the basis for understanding everything that Jesus does, whether it is his covenant sacrifice, whether it's restoring us to God, whether it's the idea of propitiating and atoning for sin, any of those things, ruling, governing, providing, creating. Yeah. These are all Christ things.
Yeah.
And so to understand the big story of the Old Testament in 5 sermons and 5 little chapters of a pamphlet is a really great way to set ourselves up for Christmas. So that's what I'm doing right now.
We're kind of doing the 30,000 foot overview.
Right, but you and I,
cool.
we've barely seen each other. Hello.
Yeah, I was on the podcast last week, but I wasn't actually here.
Because we recorded it early. So we haven't actually sat in this room for a couple of weeks. You have been away.
Yeah, I was away, but I was still...
Where'd you go?
Away, but not away. A group of students and I went down to Charleston, West Virginia, and on the first mission trip that any of us have ever been on. I grew up in the church and somehow never went on a mission trip. After going on one, I realized that I was very impoverished for not, spiritually, for not having that experience.
Yeah.
It was totally awesome. We spent our time serving at what's called the Boys and Girls Club. It's basically a subsidized daycare, and I think that these kids got to see a lot of things that they had not seen before.
Yeah.
Like our kids got to see sort of what poverty looks like, and that there's a lot more to life than whatever Fox Chapel and Pittsburgh and the narrative of success has to offer. So
it seems like you had lots of wins. I mean, I know
it was fun.
I know a good number of those guys have been friends with each other for a long time, but there was something different about the way they were behaving as a unit.
You
were all together for the week, I think.
Yeah, we were all together for the week, and it just kind of, it was one of those things that ever since we stepped out, the whole thing has just felt like God. I don't say this often, but like God just blessed it. Like it's not like I was brilliantly arranging things. When
the congregation bought all those blocks and that paid for 80% of the trip, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, at least. And then so many people signed up to pray. And so the whole trip was just like covered in prayer.
I saw that. I mean, we've seen this with Kairos as well. When Stu, has a list.
Yeah.
It's always full. I'm definitely seeing this in the congregation. And we will get to the passage, but it's kind of fun to reflect on this.
Yeah.
That I'm seeing a change in the congregation, which in terms of a zeal for mission and kind of giving, praying, zeal for prayers. A group of ladies and I have been meeting to pray. In fact, we had them on the podcast a while ago to kind of launch several types of prayer ministry in the church. And that's coming.
Extremely cool.
Just seeing a real change in terms of attitude to mission. Someone emailed me the other day, and we're going to talk to the vestry about maybe an overseas trip for some of the older ones, and the building development. Cool. We're going to build a roof for a church in Africa. So I'm just feeling really excited about all of that.
Yeah, I think going on a trip and seeing some things really kind of it got me excited just to see some of the places where God is working and some of the places where there's need and just sort of the horizons for the church.
Right.
And for me personally too, like of ways that I can plug in. It was a good reminder for me. So
beyond the beautifully paved hill of Fox Chapel.
Oh, and it is beautifully paved, and that's great. Like it's awesome. But
well, we had this funny proverb which we found, which is get your work done outside first and then move inside the house. And it's just really good, to kind of deal with water and drainage and access and parking and accessibility, bunch of new spots and wheelchair spots and access to the front of the building and all the ramps and stuff. So summer's supposed to be quiet, and here we are, kind of writing books, going on mission trips and digging up holes and the preacher this week has not
been
me or you.
Is neither of us actually. But she I know her quite well. She's my wife, and so Jenna's going to be looking at our second sort of second phase of the Gideon narrative.
Gideon and Jephthah get multiple weeks in our series, don't they? We've tried to get some judges that would kind of capture the essence of the whole period. So, Ehud.
Gideon's complex.
Gideon is complex, yeah. We're skipping Samson, which is a shame. That's kind of a fun one.
That's a bummer.
And he's a real mixed bag. By the time that we get to the end of the series, the judge will be terrible.
Yeah.
We started off on a really high point, Ehud and Othniel and Ehud and Deborah is
Yeah.
pretty good. Now we get Gideon, who really isn't quite so great. So unfortunately, one of the bits we've skipped in the narrative is probably the most famous, and it's the fleece. You may have heard of putting a fleece before the Lord. And in chapter 6, the end of chapter 6, Gideon asks for a sign. So bearing in mind, if you were here for last week, that when Gideon asks for a sign, he has already met with the angel of the Lord, who may be a theophany of God himself, or may be someone who stands in such the presence of God that he basically shines with the glory of God and is indistinguishable. And then when the angel of the Lord disappears, there's this voice which seems like a direct voice of the Lord. And by the way, also the angel has this staff that brings fire amazingly out of a wet rock covered in soup.
Yeah, I would want something more certain than that. Something more impressive.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah, something else.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, could I have a sign?
ridiculous.
And like God's like, what? And God is not like, which is so amazing. If I were God, I'd be like, well, what do you mean?
If I were God, I would just take my fiery fingers and just smite him right there.
Right,
Like,
I've just set fire to your soup
I hope that's not
using
a
a
bad word.
fire angel. But okay, so Gideon says, look, I tell you what, if I'm going to save Israel, as you've said,
Yeah.
behold, I'm laying a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. Remember, the threshing floor should be in scare quotes because it's actually a wine press.
Oh, yeah.
Threshing floor. If there's dew on the fleece alone and it's dry on the ground, then I'll know that you'll save Israel. So basically, puts his Patagonia down, and if it's wet and the ground's dry, then fine, okay, that's kind of a miracle. And then he does it, and then Gideon says, okay, listen.
That's not good
Don't
enough
let
for
your
me.
anger burn against me. Can I just speak just one more sign? He says, just one more. Okay. Can I test you in this once more? Brackets. This whole thing is soaked in Deuteronomy 6 that says don't test God, but here he is doing it.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection. You're right.
Once more with the fleece thing. I mean, it's almost written in modern English.
Well,
let me test you once more with the fleece.
Have you ever heard of? I've heard Christians talk about fleecing and like a commendable practice about like, okay, I kid you not. I've had people say this to me like that
I'm just going to fleece it.
that they like if they get a sense from the Lord, they will want to put some sort of like concrete test, like to tell them like, so okay, God, if you want me to marry this person tomorrow, I want to see 12 Cheerios boxes with the number something 3 on them,
Right,
something
with a puzzle on the back.
I don't know where
then
that
the
came
solution is marry Mary or something.
Yeah, or
go
like,
marry Jane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're like, you need to, or I need to have 4 people
Right.
come up and talk to me. Like, it's almost making God into sort of this like candy machine, fortune teller sort of thing, instead of, and that, by the way, in the New Covenant denies the reality of the Holy Spirit, who is shaping and guiding our hearts and minds to give us wisdom so that we can make decisions by prayer and humility. But anyways,
This isn't a prescriptive idea.
This is a condemnation.
He's getting away with it. Please let me test you just once more with the fleece thing. This time let it be dry in the fleece only, and on the ground let it be wet. And then God did it. So twice he tests God. We're told in Deuteronomy not to test God. And really the Gideon story is parallel with Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy says, don't test the Lord. I'm going to bring you into this wonderful land. There's all these cisterns you didn't dig, and there's all these fields you didn't plant. You're going to have abundance from other people. We meet Gideon and we find it's gone in reverse. He's in hiding instead of being in the promised land. He's been driven out because he's been unfaithful. And now he's doing all of this work, and the bad guys are taking it all away.
And Jenna had this point. I just talked to her on the phone over this about her sermon.
Yeah.
She said that in a lot of ways we're supposed to, the original audience would have been reading about Gideon and seeing comparison and contrast with Moses. Moses is in the background of this text, saying Gideon is sort of like, we wanted to be a Moses kind of character, but he ultimately kind of fails.
Like an un-Moses.
He's a foil for Moses.
Right.
He fails.
And yet, we're firmly in the mixed bag category of the judges.
Oh man, yeah.
So, which is great because, if you're listening to this and you're at all honest, you're probably firmly in the mixed bag category of Christian.
Yeah.
So there's something here. it's also not worth saying, I think Jenna was saying to me this morning when we were talking about this, was she doesn't like those sermons where basically you pick a hero from the Old Covenant and then say, go and be like the hero.
Yeah,
you know,
dare to be a Samson.
Yeah, that's what you said in your sermon.
Yeah. I don't think Samson actually is a mixed bag. I think he's a pretty uniform amalgamation
he looks like
of
He-Man.
garbage.
He's muscly, he's got long hair.
Yeah,
I think
that's
he's
true.
He-Man.
That's true. He's cool.
That was a cool cartoon.
He's cool. But
heavily soaked in the occult, though, actually, as I think about the imagery of the cartoon. So maybe we won't go there.
It's very problematic.
It's even the word problematic is problematic in my view. All right. So lest we get into critical theory
and the
origins of the word problematic.
This is a really good podcast.
No, well, it's terrible. There's only me and you enjoying it.
We're on a roll now. You're welcome, listeners.
Chapter 7.
Yes.
So Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, that's his name because he's a puller downer of Baal altars. And all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the spring of Harod, which is in Knightsbridge. It's very beautiful. And in London, that's a joke. And the camp of Harrods.
Oh, really?
And the camp of Midian was north of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. So we're getting ready for the battle. The Lord said to Gideon, the people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand, lest Israel boast over me, saying, my own hand has saved me. This is problematic. Your army is too good. Said no general ever. But this is the problem.
Yeah.
Like with every defense cut, right? The chief of staff will jump up and say, we can't fight with these, with these tools and this number of men. And
no one no one turns down a person who's, if you're overqualified, that's because they're like, oh, they're asking too much money or they're going to cause trouble. But no one's like, oh, they're too competent.
But this is the problem. These are too competent.
Yeah.
There's the risk that they will simply win because they've got a winning team. At least there's the risk that they will claim that's what happened.
Yeah.
God will give them the victory, but they will mistake it for their own.
So he wants something unexplainable to happen.
Right. So he says this, look, whoever's fearful and trembling, let him return home and hurry away. And so 22,000 people returned and only 10,000 remained.
Oh,
so he starts with 32,000 men and he loses 22,000 of them in the first go when he stands up and just says, is anybody fearful? Well, look, of course. We're about to go into a battle. Of course you're fearful.
Yeah.
You'd have to be crazy not to be fearful. It's amazing 10,000 remained.
I mean, this is the people, Midian have been oppressing Israel, so their forces are probably stronger than 32,000.
Right, and they've been described as having so many camels that it's like locusts on a hill, like insects, an uncountable number.
Camels like locusts.
Yes. They've been described as having so many forces that the hills were kind of just swarming with enemy forces.
Locusts all over the place in the Hebrew Bible, by the way.
I wonder if we still have the locust button.
Do we? I think we got rid of it for the Bacon Sunday.
Oh yeah, Bacon
thing.
Sunday. You're right, it says so here.
Oh yeah, it's true.
No point in playing that.
Oh well. Bacon, locust, camel, same thing. So so they whittle it down, there's only 10,000 left.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
The Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. So that's really funny. It's like, really? Okay. Take them down to the water. I will test them there. I'll test them there for you. So now God's doing the testing. So now we're back on track. Any that I say to you, this one will go with you, shall go. And anyone that says this one shall not go, shall not go. So he brought the people down to the water. And the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set by himself. Likewise, everyone who kneels down to drink. So I think there's two groups of people, basically. There's a group of people who are going to drink from the stream by just sticking their face in it. And there's a group of people who drink from the stream by cupping their hands and drinking from their cupped hands.
So basically the normal humans and then the utter barbarians. Is that it?
Well, possibly.
Who drinks like the former way? Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone.
You're a youth pastor.
Touche.
Did you not just spend a week with people who do that sort of thing?
I have seen an unnamed youth take a stick, sharpen it with a knife that he was not allowed to bring, and then successfully spear a fish once. At clearly another youth group, though, not anything near this place.
Yeah, I heard that story from Ascension.
Yeah, and, totally Ascension.
Church of the Ascension in Oakland. That was their youth group. And the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, little thing here with Hebrew, they just don't have any words. So they use one word multiple different ways. It's a bit confusing. Because lapped in one sentence means sticking your face in the river, and lapped in the other sentence means drinking from your own cupped hands. It's just annoying. But that's how it is. So it makes a bit more sense when you understand that. With the 300 who lapped, I'll save you. And
wait, so which one gets kept?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember.
We don't know.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Jenna will tell me.
Yeah, we do. I think it's the face stickers that he keeps.
I gotta look this up. This is gonna kill me.
All right.
Keep going though.
Okay. So let's see. No, maybe I can answer it as well. Okay, so he trims down the number to 300. Right, you'll clear up this little linguistic thing for me in a minute. With the 300 men who lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand, and let all the others go, every man to his home. So he gets 10,000 troops and whittles it down to 300 now. So now that really is a tiny number. And they took trumpets, which isn't the usual weapon. But here we go again. Trumpets, we've seen those before.
Yeah, we've seen
trumpets that they used when they
trumpets that took Jericho again under Ehud.
Yep. So and he sent the rest of Israel, every man to his tent, but he retained 300 men. So now we're down to 300. 32,000 becomes 300.
I'm sorry, I'm not finding any kind of they're not clear. So this is what the commentator, I forget what her name is, says. The method of distinguishing between those who will finally remain and the rest, that is, those who lapped and those who knelt down, remains obscure. Dogs use their tongues to lap from a stream, the illustration provided, which for humans would involve kneeling down or lying flat. It is sometimes assumed that the chosen ones scooped up the water with their hands, thus remaining more aware of their surroundings, and that this was the reason for their selection. But dogs do not scoop up water, and the text does not draw that conclusion. It may just be that whatever the precise difference was, it marked out a small minority.
That's interesting.
So she doesn't offer any sort of...
Well, I think herein actually lies a little intriguing thing, right? We as humans always want to find a way to make this story completely unmiraculous. So I have heard some scholars be tempted to kind of resolve this issue of lapping, to say, yes, it's the wise guys, the 300, who sensibly cup their hands and drink with their eyes still up, right? Instead of their heads down.
Yeah.
And these guys are obviously more alert. They're like the crack troops. And what we've got is we've basically whittled it down to 300 Navy SEALs.
And we've got rid of stronger than 32,000. Exactly. That doesn't make any sense at all.
It's garbage.
Because the method that God uses to defeat the Midianites is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is nuts. Yes, we'll get to that in a sec. That's absolutely right. You see the same thing with David and Goliath. There's a temptation amongst liberal scholars to say, well, actually, what happened was Goliath had a deformity. He was unusually big because actually he had a problem with his body. His head and his hands and his feet. He was actually essentially an invalid. And so David, the ruddy shepherd boy who's strong and powerful and wiry, is able easily to beat up a man with numerous disabilities. That's the liberal translation or understanding of David versus Goliath. Of course, the text doesn't say anything of the sort. Everybody is terrified of Goliath. He slays people all over the place. He's just actually a giant, strong he-man brute. Yeah. But there's this temptation to say all the time in scholarship, look, what is the most basic, boring, rational sort of explanation for this?
I know what's really going on here.
Right.
When instead, it's just weird. It's just bizarre.
The text here says, there are too many people for me to deliver you. So God is is revealing himself here as deliberately whittling down his own forces. He's deliberately weakening his own position.
So if he was whittling it down to get the elites, then because that would make it stronger.
That would be the opposite of what the text actually says.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's just really, really worth looking at that, because you'll see this in scholarship a lot and you'll hear it crop up in preaching. So if you're trying to figure out whether your preacher is being faithful or not to the text, and it's one of those issues that could go either way, I would ask, does this make me feel more amazed about God or less?
Yeah.
If this makes me think that God is actually just using a little bit of human logic and really there's nothing miraculous going on, then that preacher has really, I think, gone out of their way to make the sovereign of the universe look less good than he really is.
I forget who this was, but somebody postulated that Jesus fed the 5,000.
Oh.
He stood in front of a cave and the disciples were handing stockpiled bread out, and like they would just hand it to and so the people would just see Jesus at the mouth of the cave just handing out all the bread, like, oh, where'd the bread come from? Oh,
Yeah,
let's see.
not the cave, is it?
No.
What cave? No.
Like, why did you stockpile bread in a cave, Jesus? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's anytime somebody's too much of a know-it-all, like just stop.
There's a temptation to make miracles seem mundane.
Yeah.
And to call it scholarship.
Yeah.
And it's right here in this passage. There are many older commentaries from the 60s and 70s that went out of their way to make Gideon look like he was leading the SAS, which is clearly not what it says.
No, he's a chump.
Right. Okay, anyway. So now let's see what the crack troops are going to do. In verse 9, that same night the Lord said to him, "Arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand," speaking about a future event in the past tense. "But if you're too afraid to go down to the camp with Purah, your servant. You shall hear what they say." So you're going to go and listen in, basically. And afterwards your hands will be strengthened to go down the camp. So God knows that Gideon is like a fleece guy.
He's a coward.
And it's like, look, dude, let's say you did want another test. Well, why don't you just go and listen in for a bit and see what they're saying?
Yeah. Then he went down with Purah, his servant, to the outposts of the armed men who were in the camp, and the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east along the valley were like locusts in abundance. There it is again. As their camels were without number, as the sand on the seashore in abundance. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. He said, "Behold, I dreamed a dream. And behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian and came to the tent and struck it so that it fell and turned upside down, so that the tent lay flat." His comrade answered, "This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, the man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp." Wow.
So there you go.
There's a sign for you.
That's a pretty good sign.
Like, hey, I just had this dream. Yeah, the meaning of your dream is that we're about to all die.
Yeah. And he's listening to it.
Yeah.
As soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, so helpful. The prophetic always needs an interpretation.
Yeah.
He worshipped. And he returned to the camp of Israel and said, "Arise, for the Lord has given," speaking now in the past tense but a future event, "the host of Midian into your hand." And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and put cluster bombs and assault weapons and Law 94s in their hands, all the latest technology.
No, not so much.
No?
Trumpets.
Trumpets. Okay.
Just all bugle boys.
Just put some trumpets into the hands of all of them and empty jars with torches inside the jars. So just like bric-a-brac.
They have no weapons.
No, we've got trumpets, empty jars, and torches. And he said to them, "Look at me and do likewise. When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. When I blow the trumpet, I and all who are with me blow the trumpets on every side of the camp and shout for the Lord and for Gideon." So we're just going to go down there and make a racket, basically.
Yeah. And they do it. And
last night,
it works.
Last night, a boy who's friendly with our family found a very, very big ladder and put it up against Hannah's bedroom window and went and made a racket at the window to scare them. And it caused no small commotion within.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Oh, that's that kid that goes to Ascension.
is the
right?
Ascension kid
Yeah, the Ascension kid.
who came round
Yeah.
from Oakland.
Yeah.
And
Dangerous.
and it reminds me of this passage a little bit, because this all seems very childish. Like, just go along, you've got some jars, torches, and trumpets, and just go, and then that'll be it. And then
I wish that we could have could get Mike Stars in here to hear like about,
he'd love all this.
because he was in the, he was just retired from the U.S.
As a
Army.
lieutenant colonel.
Yeah, he doesn't mess around, and like, he
Did
was
you ever
telling me
do
about
this? Just-
battle plans and stuff like that.
I know.
Like, what's the backup?
Go on patrol.
What's your contingency?
Yeah, that's right.
What's your
Is this where we went wrong in Afghanistan, you think? This was the thing.
This was the thing, among other things that went wrong.
This was the main thing.
Yeah, there were a few other things that went wrong in Afghanistan, but we won't go into that here. We don't
Maybe
talk
this
about
is
that.
where, yeah. Well, here we go. So this is a military leader who has taken an army of 32,000 to be an army of 10. Then he's got a bunch of dudes who stick their face in a river and a bunch of dudes who don't. Can't be quite sure which is which.
Yeah.
But 300 that are left. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess it's the face stickers. Because I would think most people would cup their hands to drink, but
this is just a guess.
I'm guessing. It makes the story more fun.
I like
less fun.
I mean, I think it's a choose your own. There are some things that are like the scripture clearly says this seems like a choose your own adventure.
Right.
A little
Well,
bit.
let's go for the one that's wilder, not more boring.
Yeah, I like
right.
the ones that drink like they're animals.
And then they take this bric-a-brac and they go down to the camp, and we're off. So they went with him. They blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. So they will copy him. They held in their left hands the torches, their right hands the trumpets to blow, and they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." And every man stood in his place around the camp. And all the army ran. They cried out and they fled. That's the Midianite army.
So are these like ancient Molotov cocktails?
Yeah.
Essentially?
Yeah, I think they are.
Okay.
Or they make a bit of a noise and a light. So they're like flashbangs, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I think they're flashbangs.
Flashbang Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to. Well, let's see.
I like bric-a-brac.
I think they're flashbangs. They're
Okay.
just like you would just throw in a room before you clear it.
Yeah.
Boom. So every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade and against all the army. So now, in disarray, the Midianites are fighting each other in the dark, in panic.
Yeah.
And the army fled as far as, well, I'm not going to pronounce that word, towards Zerathah, and as far as the border of Abel Meholah by Tabath. And the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. So now we've got them on the run.
Yeah.
Gideon said, okay. This is not the 300, right? This is now the Gen Pop.
The Gen Pop?
The general population.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't the 300. This is the go-home guys chasing.
Messengers throughout the hill country saying, come down against the Midianites. So
Right.
the other 22, the other 31,700
Yes.
now are coming and
Back
pursuing.
into battle. Yep.
And they capture the two princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. If you ever side note,
Kids'
listener,
names.
if you ever have twin boys, Oreb and Zeb, they killed Oreb at the Rock of Oreb. Do you think it was called the Rock of Oreb before that?
That'd be gutting, wouldn't it?
Like
That'd be really gutting, wouldn't
you're
it?
at the Rock of Oreb. Oh, and then Zeb was killed at the wine press of Zeb. So, their own. No, I think it was probably named after them.
Other way around, do you think?
Yeah, probably. And they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan.
Across the Jordan. So this is how it all started when we got to the Promised Land. We crossed the River Jordan. Trumpets. Crossed the River Jordan with the presence of God in the ark. This is the ark that allows them to cross, holds the waters back, reminding them of when God held the waters back as they escaped Egypt.
Oh, that's not a minor detail, is that?
It's massive, isn't it? And then you've got
the Jordan.
Yeah. So now we've got trumpets and Jordans.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Oreb and Zeb.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it for this text. I think chapter 8.
We can't finish the podcast.
Start next time.
Yeah.
Well, okay. What's this like takeaways? That's a long story, right? There's a lot to that.
Well, I think our tendency is to get the glory for ourselves.
Yeah.
Our tendency is to think that God needs a little bit of help. We'll certainly get that with Jephthah as he tries to bribe God or treats God like a false god. We like to think that we've kind of got this. In the alternative, me and God have got this. God is going out of his way to reveal himself as exclusively providing their salvation. And he's even leading them right back to where it all started, at the Jordan. I mean, they couldn't fail to miss that.
There's really no place for pride for a follower of God. Like,
No.
there's just...
No.
I mean, there's nothing about Gideon's leadership that is particularly remarkable. Actually, in every way, he's kind of terrible. I mean, maybe he has some interesting ideas with the whole
but you could
flashbang grenades. But
you could imagine at the end of this huge battle, if someone called George was standing near the Delaware with a flag in his hand still there.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, cool. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Like you've got a lot of symbolism of how it all started.
Yeah.
And clearly there's a rout of the bad guys. They've eliminated the leaders.
Yeah.
They've actually turned to themselves, and it's all been confirmed by numerous signs.
It's his moment of great glory, but it's come through just being whittled down repeatedly.
There could be no doubt whatsoever in Gideon's mind that this is all the absolute sovereign will of the miraculous Saviour Lord, who has taken him from threshing out wheat in a winepress in the hills, starving, right? Appeared to him as an angel of fire, set fire to his soup, made his fleece wet when the ground was dry, and made his fleece dry when the ground was wet, then let him listen into a prophecy and an interpretation, then fulfilled the prophecy and interpretation using an armed force that he's whittled down twice. Okay. And then having killed the bad guys at the place where it all started, with the River Jordan, with the trumpets. So it's a bit of a big story.
Yeah. Well, what's the first thing that he said that the Lord says to Gideon? God says, "Go now in the strength that you have." Yeah. In this great strength of yours.
That's a funny hint.
But the problem is that Gideon actually, in the Lord's eyes, has too much strength and too little faith.
Right.
And so God is interested in growing his faith and shrinking his strength. And maybe that's, I mean, if I were to bring that into my own life and apply that general principle, I think that that's often been my own story. Is I think that I have too little strength, that I need more strength, but actually God delights to use us in our weakness and our ability to choose to trust in him. And it's in weakness, it's in human weakness that the glory of Christ is made great. And so trusting in him and allowing him to be magnified even when we are small, that's the way forward. All right.
I can't say anything because I'm a guest.
Yeah. This has been great. Thank you. Thanks for coming and joining us as a guest.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This is we hope to have you on again sometime. I'll have to consult my co-host. This has been a podcast of Christ Church Fox Chapel, all rights reserved. It's been an absolute pleasure having you all, and God bless.
Thanks for stopping by.
But God bless. Thanks. Stay classy.
But mostly thanks for stopping by.